Ish ve'isha zachu shchina b'neihem. A woman and man have this chus, the Shekhinah rests between them. The Rebbe explains, Beineim is not between them, it's through them, it's within them. The Shekhinah shines through them. And Zachu is not just the word schus, but as the Rebbe explains, it's from the word zichuch, it's a refinement. When a man and a woman can refine themselves, refine that exterior, they can reach through to their mamash, to their holy, beautiful interior. And the Shekhinah, their inner light shines through, and they merit the presence of the Shekhinah through themselves and through their home that they build. So a few years ago, I was on a exciting trip when we could still go places. And I was in the jungles, actually, in Costa Rica. And I love nature, and we were going to see animals, but in the meantime, the trees really, really fascinated me as we were searching for the animals. And I saw something I had never seen before, which was I saw two trees, which very obviously had separate root systems. And they had at some point come together and they became one tree. And it was absolutely fascinating. And I asked the guide about it. And he explained it to me. I didn't really understand what he was saying because his English was, so I had to go home and then Google it. But then I understood what he was saying. And this is something that's called inosculation. And it's a fascinating phenomenon in the natural world. And of course, everything we see in this world has a lesson for us. We don't see anything by accident. And this was an amazing, amazing thing for me to see what happens with these trees. As the winds blow them and they go through the trauma of being moved, they're not in this peaceful place. There's winds, there's storms, they're moving. As they move, sometimes they come together through the movement. And when the bark of the tree, the exterior of the tree wears away, their interior, which is called the cambium of the tree, their inner essence of the tree, they touch. The two trees touch, their inner essence touch. And when that happens, they are able to self-graft and become one. And what's amazing about these trees that become one is that the root systems always stay separate. They don't merge. They still have separate root systems, but where they come together and become one, they become stronger than the other trees. They become wider and bigger than the other trees. And they really, truly become one tree. At the same time, they each have their separate root systems. And both of those root systems need to be nurtured. They need to be nourished. They need the rain. They need the sunlight. They need all those things. Each one, if one of them is not getting their nourishment, the tree will not do well. The tree will not survive. So even though they are one, they both have their root systems that need to be nourished separately. And this really was a powerful message for me, seeing this in nature, seeing that Hashem showed this, put this in front of me. How do we do this in a marriage? How do two separate people with two separate backgrounds and different personalities, different desires, how do they create a situation in which we become greater than the sum of our parts? That together we become something more whole, more complete, stronger than we would be alone. And this is a marriage of true connectedness and true intimacy. So before we talk about, what we want to talk about is how do we do this, right? And I love how this is progressing because Chani's words were perfect. Why do we do this? Why do we do this? Now we have to talk a little bit about how. But before I talk about how, it's important to recognize that there are, like she was mentioning, like Chani mentioned, the Satan in this time is very, very, very strong. More than ever, we are swimming against a very powerful current. And if anybody's ever swam in a current, you know that you cannot let your guard down. You cannot relax. Because if you do, you're just going to go straight where the current is going. If you want to go in a different direction, if you want to fight the currents that are all around you, you need to constantly be vigilant. You need to be active, passionate, and aware of what is going on. We live in the society, in the secular world that is very, not just unhelpful in terms of marriage, but actually anti everything that marriage stands for. All the Kedusha, the sanctity is actually being destroyed. When people speak about what's going on now and people say, Germany and Hitler, chas v'shalom, say, actually, if you want to think about what's happening right now, it's really what just happened in Hanukkah. It's the story of the Yevanim. We are fighting against a Hellenistic culture, a culture which wants to take away the Kedusha, which wants to take away the sanctity from everything and say, it's okay, we can intellectualize it, but take away what makes it holy, take away what makes it pure. I also live in a very, very liberal neighborhood. The neighborhood of Park Slope, Brooklyn, which is really the epitome of what's going on with this world right now. The forces that we're fighting against are very, very present here. So being on shlichus here for the last 20 years, I'm very conscious of what we are fighting upstream against. And I just want to go through just for a minute, because I don't want to focus on the negative, chas v'shalom, always the positive. But by understanding what we're fighting against, we can understand how to grasp hold of the Kedusha that there is, and the words of the Rebbeim and the words of Chassidus and all the light that surrounds us that we can grab hold of and make use of if we understand. Because once you become so exposed to something, you forget it's insidious. It seeps into our consciousness and becomes so acceptable. Like if you think about the Jews in the time of the Yevanim, like Hellenistic culture was just the way it was, right? That's the way it was. It was the worship of the body and the strength of the body and the intellectualism and all of this. It was good stuff. And to really understand what we're fighting against is very, very important, especially when it comes to marriage, and understanding how we can resist these forces. So first of all, and I don't know if I'm talking here to a group, people are not really showing themselves. So I'm assuming we have a wide range here, but a lot of this is stuff that affects the younger generation very, very much. Particularly, I'll start with social media. And social media is like, first of all, before we talk about the one of the tremendous dangers of social media, first of all, the distraction aspect of social media. And I've actually spoken to people who are in this industry, and they told me that billions of dollars are actually spent on figuring out how to get the most eyeball time. So basically, their goal is to distract you to the point that you never want to look up from your phone. And that's when they've made it. So that is their ultimate goal, that everything else in the world should take second fiddle, should play second fiddle to what is happening in this virtual social media reality in your phone. So there's, first of all, the issue of distraction, which it's not like we don't have enough distraction as it is. The distracting us from the people that need us the most, that actually need our attention, is tremendous. And I always say, thank goodness, Baruch Hashem, when I had my children, I did not have this temptation. It was before iPhones. And I thank Hashem that I wasn't given that challenge, because I understand how challenging it is. When I see mothers walking down the street with a stroller and the baby is gurgling and waiting for someone to smile at them, and they're with their face in their phone, or mothers are nursing their babies, which is such an amazing time to make eye contact and connect, and they're looking at their phone, or the husband comes home from work and the wife can't look up from her phone. It's a terrible, terrible klippa that we really have to work against. And then, of course, there's the issue of glimpsing other people's lives. I say, like, social media is like the world's biggest bungalow colony. It is the most, and we all know the problems of a bungalow colony. It's wonderful. I raised my children in the bungalow colony. It was amazing. But when you're there, you understand there's a matayvo alecha Yaakov. This is the bracha of the Yidden, is that we don't see into each other's lives. We look into our own homes. We don't look into somebody else's. And the danger is, you say, oh, this husband came early on Friday. This husband leaves late on Monday. This husband takes the kids out for a walk while the mother is sleeping on. How come, right? We can't look. We have no idea. It's a fake world. I actually, the other day, messaged a friend of mine. She posted a picture of herself with her family, Kanina, her beautiful big family, and everyone's smiling and they look gorgeous. They're clean and they're wearing most beautiful clothing. And I said to her, wow, what a bracha. Look at your family. And she started to cry. She started to cry. She said to me, you do not understand we took this picture a month ago, and it took me 4 weeks to post it because I'm so traumatized from that picture. She said, and still when I look at it, I have PTSD. She says, if you know what went on behind that picture, she said, by the time we took that picture, my husband and I were not talking. Once he found out how much I paid the photographer and how much I paid for all those outfits, he did not want to talk to me. He did not want to be in the pictures. The kids were all freaking out, screaming. Nobody wanted to put on their things. Nobody wanted to smile. She said, till we got that picture, I was traumatized. She said, I couldn't even post that picture. And this is the world we're looking at that we think is real. It is not real. It's sheker. Don't look into another person's house. Look inward first. That's where we're going to find the real emes, the real beauty. And then, of course, feminism. As we mentioned a little bit right before this panel started, we were talking about feminism, and I said, I'm living in this most liberal pocket where everyone, this is like the key word, right? Feminism, and everyone's emancipated. And meanwhile, as from women, we are truly, truly feminists. Feminism, what feminism taught the world is that we're actually not enough. To be a woman is demeaning. To be a mother and a nurturer is demeaning. If you really want to be worthy, you have to be like a man. And this is the message that women took, and they don't understand why they're not empowered, why they feel like they're constantly struggling against this tide, because they can't embrace their true feminine nature. And we know this. We have the power of our Rebbeim, of the Rebbe, and the empowerment that he gave the woman. Not that she is the same as the man, but that our power is so unique. It's so precious. The chas v'shalom to give it away. Chas v'shalom to try to be anything other than what we are. And to express every aspect of ourselves through the lens of femininity, not in a masculine way. And then, of course, there's the entertainment industry. And of course, I'm speaking to a very holy group here, and we're all, no clue what's going on out there. But it's insidious. Even if you're just getting the ads on YouTube when you're trying, the entertainment industry is so anti-marriage. They make a complete mockery of what marriage is and what true relationships are. And everything else is more important. Finding your own personal fulfillment, your dream career, whatever it might be. Everything brings home the same message. So we need to be very, very, very careful. You think you're watching something harmless, something just light to entertain you. We need to be very careful because these messages are insidious. They do seep into our consciousness. They change the way we experience our relationships and the way we think about marriage and our relationships. So besides for the messages that we get, the fact that we have limited brain space. As women, our to-do lists are as long as the gullus. And by the time we finish with that, how much precious real estate is there in our brains? How much is left? What do we want to fill it with? And of course, and this is the main message I want to bring home tonight, is that what is inside will come out. So what do we want to fill it with? At the end of the day, our husband comes home, we come home, we have 5 minutes to talk. Do we have anything interesting to say? Do we have anything meaningful to say? Have we had a thought, a new idea? Is there any hischachus? If we want our marriage to be vibrant, if we want our marriage to be new and alive, we need to be new and alive. We have to have thoughts. We have to have ideas. We have to be filled with something meaningful and interesting. When we're that person, that's what the marriage is going to be. So we have to be very careful what we're filling our precious little brain space with, and know that what's going to come in is going to come out. What goes in is going to come out. And finally, and I don't really want to say this word tonight because we're talking about marriage, not chas v'shalom, the opposite. But we have to address what is going on in the world at large and how that seeps into our own precious bubble that we're trying to create. And that is, unfortunately, Rahman al-Islam, the divorce rate. In the secular world, and I live very much in this world here on Shluchos and see what is going on, the divorce rate is 50%. I think at this point it's even more. Where I live, it's definitely more. And it's the only reason I bring this up is because divorce is proven to be contagious. That's a scary thing. It's even more contagious than COVID, believe it or not. It's a proven fact, according to the studies that were done on this, that couples who have friends who are going through a divorce are 75% more likely to get divorced themselves. I actually, as I was going through some pictures recently, I was trying to find something of a program I did, and I found an old challah that I did about 10 years ago when I was doing small workshops in my house. And usually I do just women. This one was for couples. And I looked at the picture and my heart dropped because there was 4 couples that we were very close to. And I'm looking at this picture and and they were very close with each other. They were all good friends. And I realized they were all divorced. And I realized that one after the next, this happened. We need to be very, very careful. The reason I'm bringing this up is because we can protect ourselves. We wear masks to protect ourselves from COVID. We stay on this way so we can connect, but virtually. We need to be so careful who we are spending time with. And don't be fooled that we are not able to be influenced, because all of us are susceptible to influences. And when you're with somebody who chas v'shalom speaks badly of her husband or trash talks her husband, that's a terrible thing to absorb. When you're with somebody who never trash talks her husband, who only has a nice thing to say, and if chas v'shalom you'll slip and say something negative, she'll remind you how lucky you are. Those are the people we need to spend time around. That is the positive thing that we can do to counteract. We want to spend time with people who are in positive relationships, healthy relationships, be around them. We absorb their energy. It affects us positively as well. And finally, and this gets to our main message of tonight, the worship of the self. And even though we're talking about how we can live from the inside out, take care of ourselves and nurture ourselves, this is the trickiest part because it's a very, very fine line. You know, in the Hellenistic culture, and we're talking about the Yevanim and how that influence is coming back today, it was all about the worship of the self, of the body. And, you know, what are the messages we get? Because you deserve it. Take care of yourself because you deserve it. And truly, we do deserve it. But why are we taking care of ourselves? What is the ultimate goal? When we care for ourselves, what is the end result supposed to look like? It is not supposed to end with us. As the nurturer of the home, we are so powerful. We need to have the power to give to others. We need to care for ourselves. Take care of ourselves so we can give. V'ahavta l'reacha kamaycha, as Chassidus always teaches us. Kamaycha is the key. V'ahavta l'reacha cannot happen if there's not the kamaycha. If we don't have the self-love, if we don't have the kindness towards ourselves, we cannot be that loving person towards others. So it must begin with the acknowledgement of our own tzidkus, our own power, our own goodness. We have to nurture that part. And you know, Zohar, you mentioned that I wrote a book on challah and a cookbook, which was my sneaky way of getting the message into every home. So I figured, you know, who's going to pick up a book of challah but a cookbook? You know, you can't lose. So after I wrote the book, I said, no, we're going to take it a step further and let's try and get this into every secular home. And Baruch Hashem, I had incredible hatzlacha with that. As a matter of fact, wow. I even got a phone call from Anthropology. They wanted to carry it in their store. I said, if Anthropology carries this in their store, you know, I know that we managed to get it to the people that need to see it. Everybody needs the message. But I started off the book with the words that the Rebbe spoke to the women about Reishis Arisa Sechem. In the Torah, when we're given the mitzvah of challah, we're told Reishis Arisa Sechem Tarimu Challah. The Reishis, and Reishis is the most powerful word. We know there's only 5 Reishis in the Torah, and for those 5, the whole world was created. Reishis Arisa Sechem. And the Rebbe speaks about the idea that the dough is the beginning of everything. Right? We call money dough, right? Everything comes from dough. Dough is the beginning of the sustenance. And how does it begin? The reishis of the dough is Chalal Hashem. The seeds of everything that's to come is that connection. And when we start everything, when we start the marriage with that connection, and we start every day with Maidani, with a connection, and learn Chassidus and connect ourselves constantly, then everything that grows from there will rise. And that's why I called my book Rising, because as women, if we ourselves are risen, we can raise others up. It's a beautiful story of my Zaidi, Yassel Weinberg, if anyone's familiar. He was a big chassid of the Rebbe. And I really learned from him what a chassid is. He was a true chassid. There was nothing in his life that wasn't devoted to the Rebbe. And one night he gets a emergency call from Brazil that somebody is very ill and they need a bracha from the Rebbe. And he knew that it was getting late, so he quickly went over to the Rebbe's office and wrote, and he saw that the door was closed. He thought the Rebbe Chadakov was still in the office with the Rebbe, so he figured he'll write the request for the bracha on a slip of paper and put it under the door, and this way Rebbe Chadakov will give it to the Rebbe. As he slips it under the door, he sees Rebbe Chadakov is outside the room. And at that moment, he sees the holy hand of the Rebbe reaching down and lifting up that piece of paper. He got the bracha, Baruch Hashem, everything worked out. But that whole night he couldn't sleep because he couldn't stop thinking that he made the Rebbe bend down. And how could he, as a chassid of the Rebbe, how could he make the Rebbe bend down to pick something up? It was like it bothered him so much. He didn't sleep the whole night. And finally in the morning, he went to ask Mechila from the Rebbe. And the Rebbe's response to me is everything. The Rebbe's response was shock. He was shocked. What are you apologizing for? He said, Hareu kol inyani uftzahayben. Uftzahayben. My entire being, my entire inyan, my entire tafkid to be in this world is uftzahayben, is to lift another person, to raise somebody up. This is what I'm here to do. And as women, really, this is our tafkid, to raise others. And in order for that to happen, we ourselves have to be risen. We have to be in a positive place. It's not a luxury to be happy. It is our obligation. It is our ultimate job, is to be happy. If we want our husband to make us happy, we have to know how to be happy first. Nobody else is going to bring us joy and bring us satisfaction if we don't know what really truly brings us joy. I heard this very nice mashal that really brought this home a little bit. Somebody's sitting, she made herself a cup of coffee. We spoke about the Czar. She made herself a cup of coffee. She's about to enjoy her cup of coffee. She's sitting there. Someone comes by, bumps into her, and the coffee spills all over her. So why did the coffee spill? Why did coffee spill? So, I mean, most people are going to answer, why did coffee spill? Because somebody bumped into her. But the real answer is coffee spilled out of that cup because there was coffee in the cup. If there was water in the cup, it would have been water that spilled all over her. So it's not just a funny riddle, but really the idea that whatever is in our cup, whatever is in our keli, when we are bumped in life, and life will bump us, life will challenge us. There's no person that gets through this life without their particular challenges. And one person's challenges is not less than another's. Each person is meant specifically for the tikkun of their neshama. And when life bumps us, what comes out? What comes out of our cup? What comes out of our keli? Whatever we put into it. Whatever we put into it. And that is why it's so powerful, this idea that we need to constantly replenish, fill our cup, and make sure that when we do get bumped, only the most beautiful things are going to come out. You know, when you hear of chassidim who get so drunk, and what comes out? Chassidus, Torah, in their sleep, when they're not aware, that's when it comes pouring out of them, because that's what they're filled with. And just like there are so many negative influences in the world, and every single one of us has a choice. Just like the internet is filled with shtusim, it's filled with kedusha. There are shiurim online. There are podcasts. There are so many options. We have everything in English now. If you're not comfortable with Yiddish or Hebrew, you could go into a Sfarim store. The Rebbe spoke so many times about reading Chavos Alavavos, Shar B'Tachon, about educating ourselves as women. The Rebbe wanted us to educate ourselves. He wanted us to be filled with emunah and bitachon. It's a beautiful letter from the Rebbe. I'll just read a little bit of this piece because the letters of the Rebbe for Shalom Bayis are so powerful. And when a person is struggling, I really encourage them, open it up and read the Rebbe's words. Sarah Carmeli is a living testament to the Rebbe's words on Shalom Bayis, and she's going to share with us firsthand, which is the most powerful. But here's just an excerpt from the Rebbe's letter, which is so beautiful. And I'll just read it. However, when the husband experiences his wife's tenderness, warm feelings, and strong emunah, bitachon in Hashem, then he views the whole world in a different light. And his behavior changes for the better as well. Like we said, we don't do things for the results, but it's nice to know that they will follow. And when you act in this manner and you recognize that the Eibishter is the master of this world and your own home and your environment, this awareness will assure that you will be in a better mood, you will be in better spirits, and you will then realize that such positive behavior, such joyful behavior is good for you. It's beneficial for your own self. It generates affection and calm, and it's much more beneficial than the amount of strain it costs for you to be forbearing and forgiving. So not just what the Rebbe is saying is not, don't look at the negative, just look at the positive. When we radiate bitachon, when we radiate emunah, and when we see everything in our lives as being part of the Eibishter's plan and perfect for us, it's not like we have to overlook anything. It's not like we have to close our eyes. We only see the good. This is not wishful thinking. This is true. And you know, when people chas v'shalom come to me and complain about their husband, it really, really hurts me. It's like a person complaining about their child. You know, we make up that we choose to love this person unconditionally, which means that they are perfect. And people will argue, no, they have faults. Every person has faults, but they are perfect for you. Whatever Hashem, the challenges that they have are the right challenges for your neshama, for your tikkun. So it's not that they have faults. Their challenges are opportunities. And also, when we look at a person, you can choose to see the white paper, right? Or you could choose to see the black dot. Every single midah has a positive nuance, has a way to see, and we need to see our children this way. We bring that out in them. And of course, if we see our husbands like that, if we see them as the perfect person that they are, how everything, maybe they're angry, but maybe it's because they have high expectations and they're people who are driven and ambitious. That is a positive thing. Maybe they're always late, but maybe that's because they just live so in the moment that they're not thinking about the next moment. They're so pure and they have that ability. Every single trait that we see in another can be a positive trait. You can just switch it around and see the positive. So it's not about ignoring the negative. It's about only seeing the positive. It begins with seeing the positive in ourselves. It has to begin within. And how do we nurture ourselves in a way that we're going to be full of what is needed, full of the joy, full of the inspiration? And I just want to end off with a mimer from the Frierdiker Rebbe, Zeis Taras Habayis, which he spoke about in Parshas Tetzaveh, when the Eibishter tells Moshe Rabbeinu, "Va'ata Tetzaveh lahalois ner tamid." And why do we need Moshe Rabbeinu? This is the mimer. Why do we need Moshe Rabbeinu to be the one who's mitzaved, lahalois ner tamid? Because a ner, by its nature, is limited. Its resources are limited. When the wax runs out, the flame goes out. We're just coming from Hanukkah now, where we're talking about the lights of Hanukkah, which had resources beyond the physical, which were connected to the Or HaGanas, the 36 lights of Hanukkah, which are lit within us, the Or HaGanas, which is inside of us. We have those lights which are connected. Why do we need Moshe, the Ata Tetzave, because when we stay connected to Moshe Rabbeinu, when we stay connected to the Moshe of our Dar, when we stay connected to the higher understanding, to Chassidus, to the teachings of our Rabbeinu, then our Ner is connected to the source of all light and it stays lit. Wow. It is connected to the source. We never run out. We could stay passionate. We could stay alive. We could stay connected, like Sari Menu's tent, like her candles that stay lit. This idea of when we're connected to the source of Chaim, then everything in our lives is alive and fresh and healthy and new.